that respects the need to maintain a certain level of observance and integrity within the Catholic school system for Catholic teaching, and that also respects, to a degree, to the extent that we have it in this country, separation of church and state. And I use that term very loosely because we don't actually have that constitutional principle here, separation of church and state. But I think that most people, when they hear the term, they'll know what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about it nominally. I'm talking about it, for real. So the trouble is what that always comes down to this, and I'm speaking from experience, having put 4 children through religious Jewish school, and still having to paying tuition for that while I'm paying for public school, is that I think the funding system is unfair, and I think that it's time for us to have that conversation. But the funding system, the way it is now, the model is the way it is now, leaves the Catholic school system, I think, very vulnerable to these kinds of arguments. So, but I just, I want to circle back to the point I was making before, and that is that it's all very fine and dandy to talk about defending Catholic principles, but surely Catholic principles also embrace the idea that maybe at 15 and 16 and 17 years old, maybe we should be not encouraging boys and girls to be dating one another. And I'm not saying that in an old-fashioned sense. I'm just saying that, the time for some degree of segregation, I know it sounds like a dirty word, but of segregation between the sexes, the most appropriate time, I think, is probably when you're in your teenage years, where your hormones on both sides are running wild, okay? That's the time where you don't put yourselves into a position where you're tempting one another. And it just seems to me that the proper response by the Catholic school system and the Catholic Church, generally speaking, in this case, is not to say we're going to have heterosexual proms, but we're not going to allow gay students to bring gay partners in, same-sex partners, to the prom. It seems to me that the proper response is to say maybe we shouldn't be having the prom at all, and then we can fight now we can fight from a stronger principled position, the whole attack on our funding based on the fact that we appear to be discriminating against homosexual students.
Yeah, listening to you, I think that I'm not against finding different ways to fund different levels of education. I'm a big fan of vouchers, leaving it up to the parents to decide what institution is going to get their educational tax dollars, because the parent, and I'm speaking about in the royal sense here, the parents have the best interest of the children at heart. And that's not to diminish the compassionate teachers and educators that are out there. I'm not saying that, but they're not their parents. And it's up to the parents to decide what they're going to do as far as educate their children, what beliefs they want to carry on or pass down. Whether the kids accept that or not, that's a different kettle of fish. I know that my kids don't hold exactly the same views I have, as much as I grit my teeth sometimes, but they're their own people. They're allowed to have their own points of view, and we discuss it, we go over it, but it comes from a foundation where we did a little bit of everything. We had them in Catholic schools. We did some homeschooling and things like that, and I think that vouchers allow the maximum flexibility for parents to oversee the education of their children, including and that would be, you could take it to any institution. So if you, as a Jewish parent, want to send your kids to a Jewish school, you're allowed to, or Muslim or Hindu, if faith is what matters, a public one, it's all about where you want your children to go. And when you have that kind of power in the hands of parents, educators have to pay attention. And if they get it wrong, it's going to cost them. So I want to see that reinstituted. Or that's why I like vouchers. Is it perfect? No, it's not. There are problems with it, but it's certainly no worse than what we're doing now.
See, I was turning my mic off because I was breathing heavy. And for no other reason than that, I hate to say this out loud because, the COVID police might be listening. But, every time they ask me if I have a stuffy nose, well, I always have a stuffy nose because years ago I was involved in an accident. I had a considerable amount of head trauma, and I know people out there hearing that, they're going to make jokes now, which is really mean and not okay. You shouldn't be subjecting me to that kind of harassment. But anyway, okay. So as it happens, I had a lot of crushed bones, etc., and they had to rebuild a lot of my sinuses and stuff like that, and spent quite a bit of time in the hospital, and I had reconstructive surgery, etc., etc. Some of the little lines on my face that people see and think are actually, they think that they're, worry lines or old age or aging lines, and that are actually scars. They did an amazing job on me, but one of the problems is I can't breathe through my nose properly. So,
well, that would make you wheeze.
This is an example of us free associating on our show, because I don't know how we go from Catholic school funding to my, broken bones in my face. But the point is, that's why I was breathing heavily, because sometimes I'm close to the microphone and I'm breathing through my mouth and without thinking about it. But that's because I can't breathe really well through my nose. So that's why my mic was off. Okay, but I digress.
That's quite a digression.
Isn't it, though? I hope we're not turning off our, with this discussion with our people in our chat room, because, people can have their views on this stuff. And when it comes to people's personal behavior, the truth is I'm pretty libertarian. I have personal views as to what's right or wrong, but the fact that I have a personal view as to what's right or wrong does not in any way, shape, or form constitute a moral judgment of other people's actions or how they live their lives. Being Jewish, we believe that homosexual sex, same-sex activity, is a sin. So it's one of those things that we ought not to indulge in. But guess what? We also think that for Jews anyway, that eating non-kosher food is a sin. It doesn't mean that we're running around saying everybody in the world has to eat kosher food. No. So, we follow the rules that we follow because we're Jewish, and we can accept them or we can reject them. And it's the same thing, I assume, with the Catholic faith. So nobody should misconstrue or misinterpret the discussion we're having right now. And, because this is going to be a podcast and it's going to be posted in a couple of days, Nick, I just think it's important to point that out, because there's so much misunderstanding and misrepresentation of a conservative Christian or conservative Jewish, small c conservative Jewish view on sexuality and on gender roles, etc. We're always being misrepresented in the mainstream media. I'm just watching the clock here, Nick.
Yeah.
Final words.
Okay. Well, just look, it's the same. I agree with you about, it's, you have a very live and live attitude. Like if somebody is gay or straight, that doesn't change their value as a human being. Everybody knows that the Catholic Church's teaching is on the subject. as an Orthodox Catholic, then if I want to stay a part of the club, then guess what? I have to go along with that. And because it's not a big part of my life, I don't, there may be people I know that are gay. I don't ask. I don't care. I like to think I have a lot of friends. They're the ones who are going to have to reconcile with that, not me. I've got enough on my own plate to worry about before I can start worrying. What's that saying about a log and a splinter? Anyway, so as far as that's concerned, Joseph, that's pretty much all there is to say on that. I think vouchers is a very flexible idea that should be given its due. And with that said, let's take us a break, and we'll be back with more with Joseph and I right after this on The Nick and Joe Show.